Someone once told me that we don't grow when we're comfortable. We grow by making ourselves uncomfortable. Through the grit and the determination, we find the will to win. For us, veterans, first responders, what is the most uncomfortable thing imaginable? Talking. Well, that's what we're here to do. Welcome to Real Talk Mondays, where veterans and first responders come together to share their knowledge to build a stronger community, one real conversation at a time.
Hey, welcome back to Real Talk Mondays, brought to you by Second Chance Outdoors. As always, myself, Nate. You got Logan.
What's up, guys?
And with us today, we have Justin Hanley, who
Hello.
is a gentleman I've known. I use gentleman loosely as well, by the way. I've known you for what, the better part of
at least 20 years. Yeah.
Shut up, Logan. Oh, shut up. Don't even say it. Already knew that was coming. So today we got Justin on. We're going to talk a little bit about some mental health stuff. We'll get into that in a little bit. But Justin, tell us about yourself. Start off with, go from, I know we served together, go from your military service up to present day.
And what pants you're wearing?
Oh, are you
currently I'm wearing, if we want to know pants, it's currently the 511 CDCR agency approved cargo pants with Hawaiian shirt, because the Hawaiian shirt is mandatory out here in sunny California. So joined the Air Force in 2000, went to basic training at in the fall of that year. Graduated, I think. God, you're making me reach back. How long was it even that week? What was basic training for us? Like 3 weeks or something? It wasn't that long. I mean, it's like a day course or whatever. It was all right.
A day course.
It was a gentleman's course. Lackland Air Force Base, and then went to the Security Forces Academy after that, and then showed up at my first duty station of Ellsworth as a Security Forces basically trained member. Gosh, early 2001, I think. Must have been the spring, maybe.
I think so.
Right, April, May, somewhere in there. And then I met Nathan shortly after my arrival there. So yeah, since
I bet that was
early
terrible.
2001, exactly, probably 20 years, probably this month or so.
I don't know what you're talking about. I was a young A1C.
Good acquaintances, right?
I was bright and, full of hope at that point.
That'll change.
I opted to get out after my 6 years of active duty, though, and found a wonderful career with law enforcement. Right, I got out and tried to get on with some street agencies, but at the time in California, you guys recall there was a recession around 2007, 2008, so was rather difficult. But the you kind of got to go where the money is, right? So you go where the big agencies are that have the large budgets. So I got on with my agency, which we're full of peace officers in the state of California. We just mostly work at prisons. Been there ever since. So coming up on, I think about 13 years will be this year. So
Dang.
Currently a sergeant, and I do a lot of training with our local agency guys. So
Very nice.
Yeah.
I like it. Now I'm worried about what's coming. Because I see
Why?
that shit eating granola on
So
Nate's
what's
face.
next? Yeah, the beer hides nothing, doesn't it?
Man.
All right. So now that we have all the lovely introductions out of the way, let's get. I'm gonna hit you early because it's a Monday morning, so we'll smack you right away in the face.
Let's get it going.
Let's talk about mental health, Justin.
Okay.
Sure.
And going in through the military, you deployed, then as a cop, and then getting out and going into corrections. How has your view on mental health changed as you've had to switch those career fields? Is it similar? Is it different? And how do you deal with a different set?
You didn't even give the guy a chance to warm up.
Nope,
I mean,
I told you.
Let's just go right in. So
Told you,
that's
coming
the
right at
thing,
you.
right? So that's what's interesting about people who choose certain kinds of careers, right? So security forces in the Air Force at the time, right? You remember, Nate remembers the recruiting videos they showed us. It was like an episode of Cops, right?
Yeah, man.
And
we're
then,
gonna, ride horses
go
on
out.
the beach and have boats and jump four-wheelers and do all. Oh man, it was crazy.
Sarge, I got the question. Where's the horse patrol? Then you get slapped, right? Like, get out of here. Go clean the latrines, Yeah, you got a horse here.
Way different recruiting video than I
Yeah. So we're
they must
like,
have refilmed it.
Right. So the military has its own kinds of stresses, right? I mean, I think that's why I still eat fast to this day, and I'm always like 30 to 45 minutes early, right? It can drive the family crazy sometimes because I've never been late to anything if I've planned it, right? I mean,
Right.
I think some of us can attest to that for sure. Now the military has its own stresses, which we're familiar with, right? Always somebody's always watching over you, right? There's always somebody making sure you're where you got to be, and if you're not there, someone's going to be questioning that, right? Which can tear your brain up a little bit, right? You're always stressing out about being in places on time, and then you deploy, and then they're like, "Hey guys, remember when we were like trained you for that week at the nice Army base outside of Lackland, and we kind of showed you guys some of that ground combat stuff that we said would never happen? Well, guess what? Now you got to do all that stuff,
It's
right?
happening.
So it's like, okay, all right, cool. Are we getting like more equipment and stuff? Like, no,
Nope.
you got one night vision goggle that 6 guys got to share. Like, okay,
Ready, go.
that's
And you better
that's gonna
not
suck.
lose it. Like
Yeah, don't
somebody
lose
I
it.
know.
Yeah, and then it's like, Captain, I got a question. Hey, these guys are shooting real bullets at us. So, like, what's going on with that? It's like got its own stresses, and you lose all that sleep while you're overseas. But I think, like most people, you're just kind of like, hey, let's get through this. Let's do what we're doing, and then you kind of don't think about it for a while, right?
Right.
And now myself and a couple other guys I was stationed with, we all went into like law enforcement careers after active duty time. A couple of us picked corrections careers, right, in our own respective states. And I think from what I've seen, I've been doing with CDCR for almost 13 years now. That's actually probably for most people a more stressful career than the military can be, because it's not every day in most jobs where you can walk in and nothing happens, and then you're drinking your cup of coffee and then there's a homicide right in front of you.
Right.
Okay?
Like that's not
that can affect people a lot. Cops on the streets generally are going out and helping people, right? You're all going out, you're helping get the kid that lost their parents, or you're getting the cat out of the tree, helping the firefighters out, or helping
if the cat's hungry, it'll come
families,
down.
the right. And the interactions with the more dangerous elements, only when something really bad happens, that's what makes the news, right? But day in, day out for my street brethren, their usually interactions with the public are generally good. Everybody I interact with at work is a convicted felon by the state of California that's serving a set amount of time for a felony they committed, right? So they're
already bad guys.
Yeah, it could be generally not the nicest folks, right? So it's happened lots of times where it goes from 0 to 110 just like that, right? And your heart rate goes from a resting heart rate to 300 beats a minute because now you're fighting somebody with your bare hands, or using different chemical agents or weapon systems or whatever you got to do to affect the arrest, right? Because we still basically rearrest these guys while they're inside. All the same things on the streets happen inside the prison, right? We have homicides, drug dealing, gangs. It all wears on the psyche a little bit, right?
I was gonna say, does that make you a little bit more paranoid? Because I know we were pretty paranoid when we were in security forces.
Maybe paranoid,
I would say
hyper vigilant.
Yeah, because people were coming after you. Like, you have to constantly have that, like, you're nonstop looking around.
Yeah, and Nathan's known me for 20 years, so he knows that how I am when I'm basically not at work, and how we were when we were stationed together was that we were always kind of had, the switch was always on. We're always at, quote, yellow alert, right? So we're always kind of just aware of our surroundings, right? And ready to complete that cycle of action if we needed to in an instant, because that's kind of how we were trained, right? And that was always kind of the mindset of protecting the base. I think the difference is with back then to now is that at the base, you were kind of relatively safe if you lived on post, you got off work, you went to your area, your dorm room, or your house or whatever.
Especially at Ellsworth, there was
you were mostly
sure.
Yeah, I mean, in the Air Force, if there's any other service members out there in the other branches, hey, I've been to some of your bases, and some of your bases are pretty hood. All right, so let's just get that out of the way right now. Yeah, it's like the Wild West out there. Okay, so
it gets western.
It gets crazy out there, right? And you see the reports, see some of these joint bases, and you're like, my God, how can this be happening on a military base? But
we've been there.
We worked at a joint base together.
There you go. So you guys know
one.
some of the brothers and sisters from the other branches, a little bit more hood than the other places, right? So hope that's okay to say, but you guys understand there's more activities. There's more activities that occur when you bring lots of groups of people together, right? So, but you live on post, you're generally a little safer, right? Yeah. Once you're on the outside and you're working with certain of those criminal elements, you're around them, if they want to, they can reach out and find you a slightly easier, because remember, you don't have the perimeter fence, you don't have the base security, right? You don't have all the security systems and layers. I mean, I guess you could at your house if you lived in like some kind of fortress or something, but who wants to live like that, right? That's the other aspect of it, is the more security you have, the more kind of stressed out your life could be, right? So
It'd be like going from working in the prison to a prison at home.
Yep.
basically, yeah, that's, I mean, and that's the
No.
pitfall people would like to avoid, right? And correctional staff, what we've learned over the years, tend to have a higher suicide rate nationwide than the active duty military does, and then most other agencies do as well, right? So your street agencies, they're still stressed, but it's not as bad. It tends to disproportionately affect those in the correctional line of work, and that also includes like our parole agents and probation officers as well, right? So it tends to affect our groups a little bit more than that. I mean, just in our agency alone, just off the top, just this year alone, I think we're already up to 6 suicides in our agency in the last probably 4 months. So,
Lord, man.
and we have 31,000 roughly sworn members in our department. So pretty big agency too.
Why do you think that the suicide or the mental health aspect affects COs, correctional officers, a little bit more?
I think, like, you recall those feelings when you deployed and those stressors you had when you're overseas, and the rockets or mortars or the gunfire is coming in. Eventually that stops, right? Because eventually after 6 months, or if you're there for a year, 13 months, whatever, eventually you're going to rotate back, right? You're going to come back to the world, and that's kind of going to be in the back of your mind, and you're going to go back into your training aspects and do your spin ups or your cycles or whatever it is for your next deployment. And maybe that never comes because you get off active duty and you go away. I think with correctional staff, that doesn't go away until you retire after 20 years.
Right.
And so some of the people, I just think have a hard time coping and handling with that. Now, not to say we leave them out to dry. We do have a pretty robust employee health system. I'm on one of those teams at our work for talking. It's called peer support, right? So if you're having issues, you can reach out to one of us and we'll talk with them. And we have our own resources too at work through that program that we can give to the individuals, whether they're sworn or non-sworn, because we have both kinds of people that work at the institutions, right? We have medical people and cooks and librarians, teachers, coaches, various kinds of non-sworn folks that help out with the real rehabilitative process. Sometimes it's more successful than others, but whatever. True, right? So I think that's why is it, even your highway patrol officer, right? They can see some pretty savage accidents and wrecks and a lot of carnage, right, on the highways, right? The red asphalt, so to speak. But how many times a day is that going to occur? Now, in the correctional line of work in California in particular, we're what you would call a pretty busy agency, right? California has about 33, 34 adult prisons. At any one of those at any given time, depending on which one you work at, depending on the demographic and the security level, there could be some pretty violent incidences that one would have to respond to almost on a daily basis. When I was brand new at where I work at my location, based on the security level I was responding to incidences just about every day on my shift for the 5 days a week I worked there. So I noticed back then my health, I was in my late 20s, my health was starting to take kind of a dip back then, right? Blood pressure was high, and they're like, hey, you got some stuff going on. My doctor was like, you probably got to change some. What do you do, man? He's like, what's your job? I explained to him. He's like, how long you been doing that? I'm like, I don't know, about three years in now. He's like, okay, we got to make some adjustments here. Yeah, he's like, because your labs are coming back kind of wild, man. So we got to make some adjustments, right? So, and I just think some of the guys too, based on the kind of the mindset about how law enforcement is, it's very, very similar to the military in terms of like, we don't really talk about our problems, right? Remember active duty, Nate? Back when we were in our early 20s, we didn't talk about nothing.
What problems?
There were no
fighting,
problems.
fucking, and drinking, and what we were going to do after work. That's literally all we talked about back then.
That's it.
Right, in our early 20s.
Yeah,
that was it,
there was no going to like, hey, I'm going to go to mental health.
Yeah, you get made fun of for doing that and laughed at, and we would do the the verbal beat downs until you either one, you screwed up enough to where
you were gone.
The supervisors will pull you off the line and get rid of you. And we looked at that as a victory, when maybe, I'm not saying all of them, but maybe one or two of those guys might have needed some help back then, right? I mean, that was 20 years ago. The mindset was way different. Nobody went to mental health. You came back from deployment. I think probably on both of our last trips out from Ellsworth, we didn't go together, but it was within a year of each other going in and out to Iraq. But I think with mine, as I got back, they were kind of offering like a mental health evaluation with the, like, on the backside of the paper, it was like, don't actually go there.
Don't actually say anything.
It was like, don't actually, like, it's a box you got to get checked off on your, like, kind of sign
check the box.
checklist. But it's like, you're just getting a little stamp on there, right? You're not actually saying anything. just kind of go there and go away. And I got to tell you, probably those times at the Ellsworth the mental health or the psychology department or whatever in the
Yeah, it was
clinic,
mental health
I
and life
doubt
skills and mental health again. And
the only time they got business was when we apprehended somebody for like beating their wife or whatever.
Yeah.
And we had to take them there. That's
Yeah,
the only time
or-
these guys had business.
or like
If they're
ADAP.
deploying, people deploying back to the base, nobody ever went there for that.
Nope.
And I mean, I'll tell you guys, I lost sleep for probably the first 4 years after that 2004. That last deployment was a busy one for me.
Yeah.
I know Nathan's was busy too, and his one was I think a year after that. But
Yeah, I went in 05 after you.
Yeah, it was.
and I went
we'll
to,
call it
I-
pretty busy, and I
I
know
went
both of us
into mental
had our
health
issues over
after
the
I
years,
got
you know.
back.
Yeah.
And
I didn't start going and seeking treatment for about 4 or 5 years afterwards. So we're talking like 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
which
Well,
was-
I mean, I went in and it was one of those where it was highly encouraged, almost to the point of you're going.
Yeah.
And I went in, and the lady that I saw, there was so much stuff going on that they didn't know about, or how to deal with, PTSD and mental health and all that stuff. And
Right.
she's like, "Oh, I got to ask you a question." Like, okay, go ahead. And she turned around and pulled a book off of the shelf and started thumbing through. I got to find this question. And I lost my shit and went off and bounced.
She probably took was it the diagnostic book of like mental health diseases, volume 5 or something? It's like,
I don't know, but it was like
it's like
this
thick. Yeah.
It was like-
yeah. It's like
And
what do they
I
call those?
walked-
A physician's desk reference. Yeah.
There you go.
I walked out, and as soon as I walked out, I hit the door, and I was immediately like, "Great, I don't have to go see the commander now because
You're like, ah.
just
I'm
lost-
about to get in trouble.
I just lost." my
Generally not a
shit
good thing.
in
No,
mental health.
generally not a good thing.
And so I went back to the squadron, and lo and behold, who's the first person I see when I walk in the door?
Oh, hey, sir.
It was the commander.
Of course.
How'd that appointment go, Nate? You're like,
It wasn't even that. It was just
good?
like, "Oh, hey, Nate, how's it going?" And then he just kept going. I'm like, "Okay,
Maybe he doesn't
No.
know yet.
He might not know.
I'm going to go down this hallway, and hopefully nobody grabs me."
Right.
But it's changed so much since then. I mean, yeah, we didn't go and you didn't open your mouth, and you didn't talk
No.
that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. You just tried to deal with it. And it was
So, and it probably,
2009, 8, 9, somewhere in there when I actually went in and started going and getting seen too.
I think maybe the normalcy of it, like it seemed like a not detrimental thing to do. Like, hey, they actually want to help you. Like, but again, I think it's also finding the right person too. I remember that it was probably rumors. It probably was bullshit. Never actually occurred. But I remember, I mean, me and you used to talk about, hey, did you hear about that one guy? We heard it from like a friend of a friend of a friend who maybe went to mental health and they like pulled his clearance or something.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows if that's true? Because I never personally knew anybody that went there and
No.
lost anything.
We did,
But it was
have
always a
some that-
rumor, right?
We did have.
I
some
never
that
knew
went and lost their
anybody that
guns
lost.
for a while.
Well,
Yeah, I'm
they
sure
got
that happened. But it turns out, you do your research, and that's probably a case by case type thing. That doesn't.
Yeah,
that,
it's
we
not.
they
would
don't
think it's an
lose.
automatic thing, right? So,
Yeah,
You
and that
don't
was
get-
that was the thing, is everybody thought the minute you step foot in that door,
right. It's
You're
over.
screwed.
Yeah.
you're done.
done.
Yeah, you're done.
You're taking
You're
your
done.
gun, you're taking your clearance, like you're not coming to work, we're gonna kick you out, you're done.
Ever,
Your career's
right.
over. And you're just like, well, I'm not going.
Yeah, yeah, like that.
No.
Why would anybody want to go to someplace
You're just
like
gonna
that?
you're just gonna get off
But
of
it's
work
all perception.
and deal
It was
with
all
it.
bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of it
Like,
is it's developed a lot to where back when we're talking, 20 years ago, it's a totally different system of care and reach out and resources than it is now, than it even was 10 years ago.
I think definitely it's gotten more robust. I mean, until COVID, I was still seeing someone about that, So it's just someone to go talk to, like a we'll call them like a non-affiliated party, right? Someone who doesn't have an opinion this way or that way. It's just someone to go that's not at the house, you know what I mean? And not
Right.
like a friend who's going to be biased to you, but could say, hey, have you tried this? Or, you've done that for so long. Maybe there's this too you could try, or these other options here or whatever. So I think that's been a tremendous help, because I'm telling you, some of these jobs that people pick to do after the military could be more stressful than when they were actually on active duty. I mean, in my nature of work, in the first year or two working in the facility, I used more force and was in more incidences than I ever was at Ellsworth stateside, non-deployed status. It's just a different line of work, and handling that stress is, even our department has, in the last 10 years or so, has gotten way better at the staff kind of taking care of each other and getting those resources out there and available, and making sure that we push it out to everybody. Like, hey, this stuff is here. It doesn't cost you anything. Go ahead and use it. You know?
And you should use it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
what do you do?
What are some of those resources that you guys have going on?
So a variety of things. It could be anything from like financial counseling to mental health resources, and those even could be individualized to the person, to whether it's personal counseling related to some PTSD type issues or family issues. There's even also resources if maybe the kids are having problems or issues because of maybe what you're doing. There's even like early intervention for like alcoholism, which is a big one, smoking, things like this, because all those things kind of, dude, we can't do the stuff we did when we were like 20, 21 anymore. If we did that stuff today,
We would
like,
be talking
it would kill me,
man.
man. I mean, I'm going to be 41 this year. And if I murdered like 3 6-packs like I did in one day back in the old days, you know, I wouldn't be around, you know, I'd be in,
Right.
if I survived the weekend, I would be in extreme pain for like a week, you know?
Uh-huh.
So now the people that do that on a daily basis from their early 20s into their 40s, they might need some help, you know? And from time to time, it does come up at work that, hey, you know, we noticed you're kind of messing up more than usual. So you need to go do this before it becomes a major issue, right? Because,
well, that's huge in your role, right? Because you're a sergeant. That's knowing your people and identifying those things and jumping ahead of the problem before it even becomes one. That's awesome, dude, that you're able to, you know, your people well enough that you can jump in and help. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, and nobody wants to see anybody go down that path either, right?
Nope.
So even if they don't work for me, I'll still try and help out in you know, whatever way I can, right? So the idea is like, hey, let's get you some help before it starts affecting maybe your livelihood, right? Because if you mess up bad enough, just like the military, you could end up in handcuffs, you know? So we don't want that either, right? So we try to intervene as early as possible, you know? So
that's good.
So you've got those agencies and those outreach programs. What do you guys do? What do you do for personal care for yourself?
So like for me, and I think for a lot of us, is being able to kind of hang it up when you leave, right? So like, you know, in the military, you kind of never were really off duty, right? Yeah, like when I leave work, if that place burns to the ground, oh well, we'll just transfer somewhere else the next day.
We'll figure it out tomorrow.
We'll figure it out, you know, the dollars will keep rolling, and I'll just call somebody in the morning and see where they want me to go next, right? It's like exactly it. You know, you got to be able to hang it up. But I've noticed over the years, the guys that carry the more stress is like they never can really turn it off, right? Now, for me personally, the one issue I've always had is kind of like relaxing that vigilism, right? And like always just trying to not be aware. But it's so hard to turn off, especially when you potentially could have like a target on your back, so to speak, right? Now, those interactions are rare, but they do occur, right? And you just
absolutely
don't want it to be you, kind of a thing, right? You're like, did you hear what happened to the guy down at the other, you know, the town down south or whatever? Like, you know, he got robbed, they shot him, whatever. And it's like some of the more cynical officers might be like, well, did he have his off-duty gun? No. Like, well, he had it coming then. You know, it's like, damn, man. Like,
whoa,
that's like one of our partners. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's
no, we didn't.
kind of harsh, bro. Like, damn, you know, like nobody has that coming. You know, it's like, okay, so I think being able to just kind of cope with what's going on, and then as soon as you leave work, hey, find something else to do, man. Get a hobby, do whatever. I personally, as he knows, I like to, you know, get on the video games, love the cinema, movies, traveling, getting out of the house, I think is key for a lot of people. You know, some people say like, well, you're not at work, you're at home. Yeah, but if you're just locked up in a room, it's like, what's the difference, right? It's like the same thing, you know? It's like you're almost locked up too, you know? So, which I think what you guys have going on is great. You know, I've looked into the program and Nathan's told me a lot about it. So, again, thanks for having me on, but that's good that you're helping these guys get out and about, right? Because the outdoors that's good for your health more than people realize, I think. I know back when some of us were active duty, we were outdoors, not by choice, but because, hey, that was the mission, right? Sleeping under the stars. You know, they ask you in the recruiting office, you like hiking and camping? And you're like, yeah, who doesn't like that?
Fun.
Cool. What about if you went hiking and camping?
The whole time you do it.
Yeah. What if you go out there with a gun, right? It'll be great. You're like, oh, with a gun? Yeah, that sounds awesome.
You're going to love it. You're going to be angry the entire time. Like,
Or they're like, you're like, angry,
awesome.
huh? Like, oh, okay. Come on, it doesn't sound that bad. You're like,
can't be that bad.
Also, you know, what about if I told you wouldn't have to take a shower for like a month? Would that sound cool? Like, oh, that's a real hardcore camping trip, right? Like, yeah, it sounds
Yeah,
great.
I'm kind
No,
of
no,
you should go ahead and put this really restrictive mask on your face now too, because we're gonna pretend.
Oh wait, we're already doing that.
No. Even more restrictive.
Right, that's true.
Yeah.
Here's this gas mask that's gonna make you fall asleep.
yeah.
right
You ever
away.
drank your own sweat? Because you're about to.
Because it's delicious.
You're gonna be miserable and
Yeah,
can't
salt
breathe.
is good, right?
And
I
so you're in hell.
hated wearing that stupid thing on my face. Oh god.
And I think honestly, if a lot of us could just find just stuff to do non-work related, it would just
Yep.
be a lot better. It's like,
You got to
yeah,
find
I
out
mean-
like that way to unwind, and it
Absolutely.
has to be. It can't be destructive, right? So we were talking on
Right,
the
right,
alcohol
exactly.
part, right? It can't be like, what do you do when you go home? Like, I just go home and get shithoused. Like, that's no.
no,
not
that's
helpful.
You're missing you're missing something there. It's got to be somewhat. It has to be constructive in some way.
has to be, yeah. And I know a lot of us, a lot of guys at work, they have little side things they do. Like I know a couple of my friends, they work with wood a lot, right? Or they build things when they're off. Or
Yep.
everybody kind of has their outlet, right? Like mine's more the electronic type thing, but it gets my mind off what's been going on at work. And and then she'll ask
And
me, the
it
wife will
probably,
ask
like,
me.
stimulates your brain in other ways to get you thinking
Yeah,
on
yeah,
like
and
different scenarios, different things.
another thing I like to do is like read like historical, books or whatever, research historical figures, events, battles, whatever it is, and just read about it, right? And it gets your mind completely off what's been going on at work. I mean, there's been times where my wife has been like, or I'll call her. She's like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I'll just roll right into, "Oh yeah, I know some guy like attacked one of the officers, and so we had to do whatever, and have some ambulances and this and that." She's like, now because she's been around in this job with me for 13 years, because she's doing her part too, right? But she's got to deal with me every day when I come home from 2008 to now, right? So
I can tell you that woman
yeah.
is a saint.
oh, absolutely, 100%. So,
And
but she's
I'm
now at the phase where
surprised
she's
that
like,
she hasn't
"Oh, okay,
murdered him yet.
Yeah, she's like, no murders or no deaths at
Yet.
work. Like, no, everybody's okay.
Yet is
safe.
the
Yeah,
key word.
okay.
Well, if it happens, he'll have brought it upon himself. And this
Most
is a
likely,
fact.
yes.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mm,
I can't deny this. So,
mm.
just so you guys know, you have the recording now. So,
It's gonna be literally on YouTube.
yeah, right.
Oh, it's good. No, you just gotta have that way to disconnect. And it sounds like your wife has probably learned what that looks like through probably your guys' relationship over the years and communicating and building that relationship.
Yeah, and I think so. And I think sometimes in the early days it wasn't as communicated, right? So that actually can be detrimental as
Heck
what
yeah.
you find out, right? And I think with the military guys, because she wasn't with me when I was in the Air Force, so she was with me post Air Force, right? So I was kind of not used to like explaining or talking about it. And she's like, "You don't ever talk about work, really?" I'm like, "I mean, do you really want to know?" Because
You
like,
really want to hear about it?
and she's like, "Yeah, I love true crime and stuff." And then she's like, "Oh my
No,
God,
this is like real world.
yeah, this is like,
This isn't a podcast.
yeah, like
I get that.
murdered the guy
100%.
with the rolled up newspaper in his ass." Like, yeah, that's what happened. She's like, "Okay, wow, that's really
That's
graphic."
weird true crime.
Yeah, it's
How that's
some of
going
the
on.
stories are pretty amazing, over the years. I got to tell you guys, it's some of the stuff we've heard
People-
about and seen, right? Some of the instances
Mhm.
is like, wow, but most normal people don't actually see those types of things, right? And most people probably don't even want to know about them. Just say, hey, that's
No.
something that probably happens at a prison. Who cares, right? Out of sight, out of mind. But there are people that work there every day, right? So, I mean, our prison alone has been open for over 100 years, so in continuous operation. So, I mean, it's interesting to work there,
And they're still humans. Like at the end of
Right.
the day, they're still people. Like they
Yeah.
went through the process. They were convicted. Yes, they did some bad shit. We're going through the process of rehabilitation, as you said.
Yeah.
Some works better than others, but
Absolutely.
nobody needs to see somebody just get shanked for no reason. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, God.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's
he had it coming though.
and I mean, and they, the inmates do their thing too, and for the most part, they're just trying to do their time and get their credits done, and go back to wherever they came from and move on with life, right? And then it's, the violence, and it ebbs and flows over the years too. It
For
just
sure.
depends on a whole million kinds of factors as to why there could be violence at a facility, right? So, generally, most of the time, they just want to do their time and move on, So,
Do you see that the younger guys that come in typically are more violent, or is it the guys that have been in for a while?
So typically your older ones, at least in California, aren't the ones doing the violence so much. They've been there, done that.
Yeah.
Your younger ones that come in now, remember, like with the economy and everything that's changed, and you might see this in your own states too, is as money gets reallocated, redirected, programs will get shut down, maybe youth diversion or whatever else. They you might have 18, 19, 20-year-olds coming to a state prison, right? And so their brains are not ready for that.
Nope.
So they're easily manipulated, and they have them go. A guy doing 4 years could easily end up doing 20 or 25 years, at least in California, the way our penal code works, right? So, and the courts. So, I mean, it just depends. And it's like, man,
You
you're
only
going down
had
a
this
darker
much
path.
time.
Yeah, you
Now
only have this much to do.
do.
Now you're getting out in the year 2199. We might have flying cars by then. Okay, so
Potentially.
yeah, it's some of those dates are crazy. It's like, hey, I think that's the year Futurama takes place when Fry gets unfrozen from the at the pizza place. You know, that's
Were
the
we
year
supposed to have flying cars
2005.
by now?
That's what I thought.
Supposedly.
This is some bullshit.
What's that Tesla guy doing? Is he making
But,
those yet? What's going on?
People started eating Tide Pods instead, so
Yeah. We could have had
That's all.
flying cars.
could have
but
had
we
some
hate-
really
This is
cool
what you
stuff,
guys
but
wanted to
you
do.
guys screwed it up.
You guys want to eat Tide Pods and see, right?
Sounds
So,
delicious.
but
Hey, Justin.
yeah, generally for the most part, that's what I've seen in the last few years within California, at least at my little slice of the pie. The younger guys usually have no direction. They just want to hey, I'm making a name for myself. Look what I can do.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Mm.
you're getting pepper sprayed now or possibly shot. Like, good job. You know, like,
Was it worth it?
was it worth it, man? You know, so
No.
it's like, you know, it's whatever.
Hey, our time is coming to a close on this episode.
Okay.
We like to end with some words of wisdom from our guests. So I would ask you, Justin, if you have somebody, what would you say to someone that is thinking about getting into the corrections career field, about what they need to do to mentally prepare and be mentally tough for this job?
So, one who finds them second guessing their decisions a lot, law enforcement in general may not be the career for you, okay? Because I would say, now I can only really speak about California because California treats correctional staff, as far as the law goes, we're in the same category as like what the street officers are, the CHP, right? We carry guns on duty and off duty, deadly force, the whole 9 yards, right? And we could be involved in a variety of types of incidences at work. So I would say if you're not sure about decisions when you make them, perhaps reconsider. There are ways to develop that skill, right? There's different techniques one can do in research and be more proactive when they make decisions, right? But having an outlet and having a way to cope with things is definitely good in any kind of field where it can be like a high stress, high operational environment, right? So kind of like the military. But the cool thing about civilian life is that eventually the shift is over with, right? So at least in my line of work in California, we have contracts and various other kinds of protections. So you work your 8-hour shift, you go home, or you work your double, then you go home, right? You don't have to stay there. So, and then as soon as you leave, hey, you're on cruise control, right? Take off your equipment, uniform, change into your street clothes, go home and have the whole nice rest of your day, right? Or night, or whatever time you get off. So
I like it.
hope
Logan,
that satisfies.
you got weekly wisdom. Hit us with something and then, continue on. You have.
I want to talk about something else real quick, other than weekly wisdom. I'll finish with that. So, Ruck for a Purpose, an event that Second Chance Outdoors is hosting. Yeah, shameless plug. Here it comes, June 5th, Kansas City. We are doing a virtual option. If you get on the website secondchanceoutdoors.net and you register for the Ruck, you're going to get free raffle tickets for a boomstick, a rifle. Auctioning off a 6.5 Creedmoor is valued at about $1,300. A good buddy of ours that we took out on an elk hunt is the one who's putting it all together. He's building it, and it's been donated by his company. So please check that out. It's one of our fundraising options or efforts for the 2021 season. And another shameless plug, we're working on something exciting coming out of Colorado. That's all I'm going to say. Because our awesome co-host, Nate, actually set the entire thing up, and I'm not going to speak on it. That's going to be his.
That'll be coming in another episode.
He's very resourceful, that one. You keep an eye on
He
it.
is. He's witty.
He's very,
Don't you be giving away any of my secret sauce.
He's fire and forget. Hey, man, we need to do
sneaky.
this. See ya. Weekly wisdom, because we're running out of time. Find a hobby. Execute on that. And find a way to challenge yourself daily and disconnect at the end of the day.
I like it.
All right.
Absolutely. Agreed.
That's all I got.
Nice. All right, guys. It
Do
has
the Ruck.
been It has been good. Go sign up for the Ruck. If you're watching, the link is below. If you're listening, secondchanceoutdoors.net. Sign up in the gear shop.
Justin, thanks for coming on, dude. I appreciate
Hey, thanks
it,
for having me,
man.
guys. Thank you.
So
Love
it's
it.
Monday. Have a good rest of the week.
Crush this
Guys.
week.
Do some hard shit.
Do some hard shit. Thanks for tuning in to Real Talk Mondays. Until next time, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening on. Make sure you check us out on Instagram over at Second Chance Outdoors. And until next Monday, we'll see you on the mountain.